first pick in the NFL draft.
Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Podcast. Adam and I are back again for another Mock the Mock. And this week we will be, last minute change to the schedule for us. We are revisiting Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft as he has released a 3.0 mock draft. Obviously, we've had the combine, we've had free agency now. He's obviously had a lot of texts and calls and been in touch with everyone. When we open it, we'll even say he doesn't usually do a mock draft this early with trades, but for the first time, he's done one. So, Adam, you made the call and we're like, look, we've got to do this.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I've only seen the top 10 because I saw a video of Rich Eisens and he was talking about it. And, you know, he was coming out saying that basically a lot of what Jeremiah's come out and said is code for conversations he's had, and like these are things that have been rumored. Obviously they're not 100% as we know, but like it does feel like there's some weight behind some of these, so that's why we thought we'd go for this one instead. And we've got still a month till the draft, so we'll probably do the others later on in the next month.
Yeah, we'll put some polls out again, get your votes on what you want to see. If you want to see a Maurice Jones-Drew or a Bucky Brooks or something like that usually got some odd and crazy picks in there, then we'll do them. But as for now, we'll, we've said before, Daniel Jeremiah's like he is NFL draft, isn't he, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, basically, given the fact that he's there on the night as well, doing it all, he's the one who, I mean, we said, didn't we, when we did his first one for this season that, you know, when you look back to last year, you know, he got quite a lot of the first round right. He got the Houston Texans trading up around on pick 3 to go and get Will Anderson after getting CJ Stroud right. So yeah, there's a lot of history here of him getting them right, and you know, he's the one who seems to know the most when it comes to the draft. So he's definitely the one worth listening to.
Well, let's jump right into it. As you can see there, I've left it on there. I've already said it already, but it just basically says he doesn't usually do them till his last one, which is the eve before round 1. So we're looking forward to seeing it. Obviously, I haven't seen it at all. Adam, you've only seen the top 10, so this is going to be a really interesting take on it. And I'd be shocked if number 1 isn't Caleb Williams, and funny enough, it is. You know, the trades happen now, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. You know, Justin Fields, obviously, now that he's gone to the Steelers, they don't have a quarterback unless they fancy giving Tyson Bagent the number 1 job. I mean, you could always go down that route. But yeah, this kind of feels like the obvious one. It's all trending that way, isn't it? And I think, haven't they actually come out and said as well that the number 1 pick's not available now? So
yeah, well, after you've made that trade and it's obvious that it's Caleb Williams, they've met with him, they've seen him, they've pro-dayed him, they've done all of that. So I'd be shocked if it's not. And I think if I was Caleb Williams, I know there was a lot of doubt in the first place with him wanting to go there. I know RG3 has even come out and said, if I was Caleb Williams, then I'd do an Eli Manning and not go there. But I think this is the team that the Bears have got. I think this is a situation that not many first pick get to go to. He's not going to an absolute shambles of a team. They've got some Pro Bowl level players on that team. So
yeah, I thought that was a pretty mental thing to come out and say. I mean, like you say, a lot of the time it's because it is the worst team in the league from the previous year. That's why they have the number 1 pick. But I think his argument was that they didn't really treat Justin Fields in a great way, and I think that's a fair argument. But I don't think you can say that they're doing the same again here. It's like, you know, bringing in someone like Keenan Allen, DJ Moore being traded, you know, as well, coming in. It kind of feels like the problem that Fields had was that he didn't have the weapons, he didn't have the O-line, the defense wasn't great. Well, the defense is a lot better. He's got lots of weapons when Caleb Williams comes in. So I don't think you can come out and be like, he's got nothing there. I do still think the O-line can improve, but it's not, you know, it's not at its worst. It's probably better now than what it was before. So yeah, it feels like, I kind of get the point if you want to argue about Justin Fields not being treated 100% great with weapons and stuff, but I think this is a pretty nice situation for any quarterback to be coming in.
Yeah, well, it wasn't Poles and Eberflus that brought Fields in.
No,
so,
exactly.
yeah, it's a bit of a tough one. Pick number 2 is Drake May. I don't have any more clarity on this pick than I did on my last mock. The Commanders did move on Sam Howell, and I'm going to stick with May here. I still think that's the right decision. I think, you know, the ceiling on this guy and the attributes and everything, I think he suits Quinn as well. So I think right pick, right decision. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because obviously there's a lot of chatter, isn't there, about whether it's going to be May or whether it's going to be Daniels. Jayden Daniels is actually favourite now to be the number 2 pick, and there's not a lot of talk about Washington wanting to trade out of this pick. It feels like, you know, they need their quarterback, so it kind of feels like that makes sense. So I think because of that, it does feel a little strange that the betting is very much going the other way towards Jayden Daniels. But as we've said, you know, Daniel Jeremiah does tend to have his finger on the pulse for this sort of stuff. And so because of that, it does make you think that maybe there is something a little bit here, that there hasn't been any significant move from hearing from teams compared to what you're seeing in betting markets anyway.
Well, as I said, I think, you know, Dan Quinn's obviously worked with Matt Ryan and Dak Prescott. So if you think about the terms of what style of quarterback they are, Drake May fits. And then you look at Adam Peters as well, who's the new GM. He was with Brady and Manning and Purdy and Garoppolo. Again, it's lots of quarterbacks that are, you know, pocket passers, sort of not those dual threats. So it kind of makes sense that they'd probably go for this guy over him for me, which is why I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. It's just it's strange how, like I say, the betting market seemed to be slightly veering off of that as Washington are favourites to take Jayden Daniels. So.
Pick number 3 is Jayden Daniels. Funny enough, I'm sure the Patriots will receive lucrative offers for this pick at the end of the day. They need to address the most important position on the field and could do so with the 3rd overall selection. They brought in a veteran. I think from the start of this process, I said I'm hearing that they're going to go and get a veteran and bring in and draft one. And they've got Jacoby Brissett, who I think is perfect to be that guy that can back up, teach. He's been there before. And then Jayden Daniels coming in, taking the spot off of him when he's ready. So makes sense.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, actually. I think having that veteran presence of Brissett there, whether it be Daniels or May, I think would be ideal. I think someone like Brissett is probably, in a way, he's almost criminally underrated in the NFL. He's clearly a very capable quarterback. He's just not anything special. And so because of that, that's why he's never going to be like a starter for a franchise forever. But I think he'd be great. He'd be able to help someone like Jayden Daniels and show him what to do. The thing with Jayden Daniels, obviously, he does use his legs a lot. But I think Brissett is one who can use his legs when needed, but also tends not to use them that often. And I think maybe that will probably help Daniels and maybe sort of like slow that down a bit so that he's not, because I think that the more he uses his legs, probably the more likely he's going to get hit. So I think that'd probably be ideal for him.
Pick number 4. Here we go. This is where it starts. Pick number 4 is the Minnesota Vikings, now trading with the Arizona Cardinals for JJ McCarthy. Now the fun really begins. After the recent trade with the Texans, it seems the Vikings are situated to an aggressive move up to draft Kirk Cousins' replacement. I was like, move up to draft Kirk Cousins. I was like, I got ahead of myself. Didn't read the word replacement. The Cardinals trade down, bypassing a chance to pick the first receiver off the board, and they address the position later in round 1. So pick 23. Well, we'll see where they go then. Spoiler alert. Loads of people are saying this. Loads of people are saying that's going to be the pick, because I know there's been some chatter that the Giants have heavily been scouting both. I think it was 2 of them. I think it might have been May and McCarthy. Obviously, we know they're not going to get May, so the Giants have heavily looked at McCarthy. So in order to get them, you've got to go up to 4. And Arizona are a candidate. So there's a lot of buzz about the Vikings going up to 4. He's not the first person to put this out there, but if the Vikings do really like McCarthy, then yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if that's who they want and that's the one that they think is going to be able to make a massive impact for them, then, you know, like you say, it makes sense for them to trade up and take him. I don't see it. I really don't with JJ McCarthy. I think that the biggest problem is that we just haven't seen it, and that's the real concern for him. And so it feels like a massive gamble. It really does. But it does feel more and more now that, you know, quarterbacks don't stick around as long as what they used to. They're not given the time that they were used to be given. And so you kind of almost have to make a move like this in order to get the guy that you want, to give him a little bit of time to see how he goes. I really think he needs to sit behind someone. And I know they've just brought in Darnold. So, but that doesn't really give you a lot of confidence, does it? So I think I see what they're doing. I think the move up makes sense if there's a guy they like. I'm just surprised that it's JJ McCarthy. And the one thing with him, he'd had his pro day, didn't he, recently? And there's a lot of like, oh, here's the Zach Wilson pro day throw that you always see, and it did feel a little bit like that. And it's just like, yeah, I'm not sold.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised he didn't just show him on his pro day handing the ball to a running back. Adam, we went through Joel Klatt's mock draft, and he got to Miami, and he keeps putting in. He's done 2 mock drafts now, and he keeps putting Michael Penix in at Miami. And everything he said, I bought into massively. And then on our main show, I even said, what are the Dolphins going to do with Tua? Because his contract needs to be extended this year. He's not going to play in his final year of his contract. And then earlier today, I saw Nick Wright saying, if I was the Miami Dolphins, I'd be ringing the Vikings and saying, how do you feel about Tua? And seeing if they wanted to use those picks that they've acquired for Tua instead. Do you think there could be anything in that at all? Because you're getting a guy that you know can definitely get the ball to Justin Jefferson.
So I suppose the thing is that the reason that you and what Joel Klatt has been saying is very much about Tua and his health, isn't it? So I mean that is the concern. Yeah, and the size of the contract as well. But I mean, with the Vikings, it doesn't really feel like they're in a win now situation. So do you really want to be taking on that contract? I think it's becoming very evident that the best way to win is when you've got a rookie QB. That is the best way to win, because you can fill out the rest of the team, and that's why it kind of feels like that's what you need to do in order to win. I don't know. I just think that for the Vikings, it feels like they've made the moves that would indicate a rebuild, and then bringing someone like Tua in wouldn't indicate a rebuild. That would just indicate like you're kind of going all over the place, and I feel like that wouldn't work very well.
Oh, it's nice to see there's a bit more traction on the Tua chat. We might have to bring it to the Tuesday show and see if we can break it down there. Adam, pick number 5 is another trade already. Is the Jets, the New York Jets, trading with the Los Angeles Chargers for Marvin Harrison Jr. The Jets are all in with veteran quarterback, and they recently acquired 2 offseason tackles to shore up the O-line. They desperately need another playmaker in the passing game to complement Garrett Wilson. So they trade up to select Harrison, the top receiver in the draft, and Wilson's former Ohio State teammate. How do you feel about this one?
So I think I completely understand it. It makes a lot of sense, because the one thing that I've been coming out and saying is that they either need to protect Rodgers or get him a weapon. And this is the biggest weapon you could get in the draft for him. So that would make lots of sense. Even with, Rodgers only being there for a limited time, when Rodgers does decide to retire, you would still have players like Garrett Wilson and Marvin Harrison. That would be 2 really good wide receivers that would be brilliant for your franchise for many years to come. So for all of them reasons, I think it makes perfect sense. The only thing I would say, and this is something that I kind of feel like it's that thing where it's almost like, I don't know, it's almost like you're getting the fun one when you need to get the sort of like the base type guy. And I just feel like, I know they've brought in 2 O-line guys to help it. I don't know if you're going to get 17 games out of them. And bear in mind, you want more than that as well, because you're going playoffs as well. And that's why I just sort of think to myself, I think you probably need to keep developing that O-line and keep on doing that. And that's the one issue where I think this is the flashy pick, and you need to go for the sort of like keep Rodgers upright and then go and get yourself a wide receiver later on in the draft. I think would make more sense to me.
Yeah, I heard one of the analysts saying that left tackle is the hardest position in the NFL to go from college to NFL. He said it's harder than quarterback or any of the defensive positions. Left tackle, you can't go from college left tackle to NFL left tackle, and it takes you a year to get used to it. So the fact that they've got Tyron Smith now at left tackle makes sense. That they've got someone who can play it straight away and then slowly bring someone into it, with Morgan Moses playing right tackle at that time. So I understand where you're coming from, and they have just brought Mike Williams in, and I know he's not Marvin Harrison Jr., but it's still another solid weapon when you already have a wide receiver 1 talent in Garrett Wilson. So it's not I said this, it's not a must need. I need a wide receiver 1 talent because we don't have anyone else. You've got someone, and you've got a nice complement in Mike Williams. So I think you could maybe stay at your normal pick and maybe just get a wide receiver there and not have to give up any capital to move up to 5 for it. I think if anything, if I was the Jets, I'd be looking at Brock Bowers because I've only got Tyler Conklin and that's really it. So I think that as a weapon would be better.
Yeah, so to me, Brock Bowers makes more sense, and you sort of think to yourself, well, if that's the case, you probably don't need to move up. You can probably start at 10 and still get Brock Bowers there. The idea of having different weapons as well, kind of, I think would make it more of a better thing for them. Like I say, it's the flashy pick, and so for that reason, it would be one of them things that would be like really exciting for all the Jets fans out there, and it would be great. But to me, it seems slightly, it seems a little bit off-brand as well. Like, it's just not really. I know they do move a little bit, and they will, if they need to, they'll go for it. But it just feels a little bit out there.
Can you see any? If obviously Marvin Harrison isn't picked with the first 4 picks, can you see any other teams wanting to move up to that pick? Because he is such a good talent, and the heights that he could play at could be there. So. Could you see the Giants just moving up 1 spot, maybe, or I
mean, they could do, but then I do feel like there's an element of what they're going to get by if they don't get Marvin Harrison, they get Malik Neighbors or they get Rome Odunze, and then you just sort of think, well, what's the point? I think that would almost be their argument a little bit. What's the point of giving up the extra draft capital just to move up 1 spot? And Marvin Harrison might be amazing. He might have an amazing career. So might Malik Neighbors, so might Rome Odunze. So it just kind of feels like it's not worth it, and you might as well just be. I feel like a lot of these teams at the top of this draft, anyone who wants a wide receiver, they've all kind of come out and gone, we like all 3 of them. So it just feels like a bit of a waste if you did.
Pick number 6 is the New York Giants, taking Malik Neighbors. I wouldn't rule out. I told you I hadn't seen it. I wouldn't rule out the Giants trading up for a quarterback this year. If they stick and pick at number 6, adding Neighbors, playmaking ability would be a good move. I've said I'm happy with Neighbors or Odunze. I don't mind which one they take. I just think we need a wide receiver. Everyone else is kind of on board with that now. I think people have gone away from offensive line and quarterback and all that. And as I said, as them being a candidate to move up, if the Vikings want anybody, they've got to take that 4th spot, haven't they? Because I can't see of the other three wanting to move down to 6. So
no, it does seem like it's going to be pick number 4 if you want to get a quarterback. And also it just kind of feels a little bit like with the way that the contract structured with Daniel Jones, that it is kind of almost like just stick it out for one more year, which, you know, in a way it's a shame because it just kind of feels like a bit of a dead year in that respect. But at the same time, obviously, if you can get someone like Malik Nabers in, you know, he would be, chances are he's going to be better in his second year than he will be his first. So it's like maybe in a way it's not the worst thing in the world. And yeah, I mean, Nabers, great wide receiver. So you need someone that's a little bit different. And I although he's not like the tall guy like Marvin Harrison or Rome Odunze, I do still believe that he would give you a different option compared to what you've already got.
You never know. We might be sitting here this time next year and Daniel Jones is given enough to give people hope, you know, in a bit of a Justin Fields situation where you kind of go in, he's good, but is he really the one? He's got some talent, but can he move it forward? And he could put enough of that in that we might even not be moving off of him next year. But yeah, the Tennessee Titans taking Joe Alt. Everybody's got this pick, haven't they? Everybody. It's the pick.
Yeah, I mean, the O-line is what they need help with. It's nothing shocking, is it? We've been saying that for a long time now. So, you know, it's the best O-line guys, the best left tackle. It's everything that they're going to want. So, yeah, it makes complete sense.
Pick 8, the Atlanta Falcons taking Dallas Turner. Yeah, Falcons took care of the offense and free agency. This is the pick that everybody else has got. Same name, same person, same pick on most of the mock drafts.
Yeah, again, not a surprise. I can't remember what it was. It's something like that they were the worst or something. They only got like 6.5 sacks, something like that last year. Desperately need help in that position. So, yeah, it makes complete sense that you'd go for Dallas Turner. Really like Turner. I think he's going to be very good when he comes out. And there has been some chat about people talking about Byron Murphy instead. I've seen that a little bit, but I think the edge is probably more what they really need, and so it feels like the right pick.
Yeah, I think it's edge that they need to address. So I agree with the pick there. Number 9 is the Chicago Bears taking Rome Odunze. The Bears could go pass rusher here with adding Keenan Allen at the receiver, but I can't resist the prospect of playing Odunze alongside Allen and Moore to project first overall pick. Caleb Williams, a Bengals-like receiving corp. Yeah, I could see them moving to edge now they've got Keenan Allen, but wouldn't be opposed to the pick either. I think I'm in the same boat as Daniel Jeremiah on this one. I think I've had wide receiver there all year, but edge is still good. Jared Verse would be good alongside Montez Sweat on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, we've been saying, haven't we, wide receiver all the way, and it feels very much obviously like you say, Keenan Allen's there now, but he's only going to be there for so long. It's not exactly a
year thing, doesn't it? Maybe.
Yeah. So I don't think there's much to it really. I kind of get the feeling that they probably feel like wide receiver is a position that they would want to strengthen at, and obviously, like if you've got DJ Moore and Rome Odunze as your two sort of long-term receivers, then that would be pretty good. And then you would have like Keenan Allen just there as an experienced head for this season coming up. So that would make sense, and they would become they would have a great sort of offensive threat by having them 3 targets there. I mean, that would be great for Caleb Williams, and they would be very like a tough team to beat. If you think, I think it would take time because rookie QB and all that sort of thing. It always does, but I think even still in the first season, you would expect quite a significant amount of improvement having them 3 weapons. And Odunze's the last guy, isn't he? He's the last of the 3 main wide receivers, so makes complete sense. And I think you could go in other areas, but they look pretty solid in the defense and at edge. They didn't look too bad, so I think it makes sense.
Defense looks strong. If they do add Rome Odunze here and they have Allen, Morton, Odunze, can you think of any other team in the league that's got a better wide receiving core? The Dolphins, maybe they've got Waddle and Hill, but it would be ridiculously strong, wouldn't it?
Not the Packers.
Well, I was going to say the Packers. I thought this in my head. I was like, the Packers have got 5 brilliant wide receivers, but they all produced last year and they were all absolutely fantastic talent. But I think I need to see another year from them. But I do agree with you that you could argue that they have single-handedly the best depth at wide receiver as well. What would you say they've got six wide receivers that could all start?
Let's think. Watson, Reed, Dobbs, Wicks, obviously Bo Melton. Come on, Bo. Toure, I don't know about Toure so much. I'd say 5. I think 5. I think when you think about it and you think of the experience with the other 2 guys that the Bears have and Odunze, if this was to happen, then yeah, I think it would be tough to find a different one. You could have argued the Bengals of a couple of years ago, but Boyd's gone now, isn't he? So there's only
Boyd
2 there.
Maybe out the door, yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, most teams only have 2, don't they? They don't normally have 3 that are of that caliber. So yeah, I think it would be pretty high up there.
We move on to pick 10, and this is the Chargers with their little trade. The Chargers take in Talisa Fuaga, who you found as a new pronunciation of his surname. The Chargers have stressed that they want to be able to protect Justin Herbert and run the ball under Jim Harbaugh. Fuaga is the most physical blocker in the draft and would start at right guard in year 1. Yes, and yes, because they don't need tackle, do they? Because
no,
they've got absolutely fantastic tackle, and he's a great run blocker. He's a great pass blocker. He's all-round talent. I think Fashanu can play guard as well if they wanted to, if they wanted to put him in there. But I've got no objections to this because it fits right for the team. Whether I think Fashanu's better or not, this would fit for them. I also think they do need a wide receiver, though.
Yeah, they do. And you could argue they've given up Marvin Harrison. They could have taken him there. So that's something that's an issue. But as we know, wide receiver is a very, very strong depth this year. So that's probably their logic. Obviously, they've picked up some draft capital from the trade with the Jets as well. So, maybe they're going to use that at some point as well for a wide receiver. Yeah, I think that Fuaga's the guy that he's ideal for them. Like you say, they don't need a left tackle. They've got Rashawn Slater, so they can go and bring in this guy. And he was like, angry guy all the time. And he would be ideal. He's exactly the sort of person that I imagine Jim Harbaugh would love. And I think he'd do really well there. And it's kind of like, it's building the trenches, isn't it? It's that thing that they know that it's going to take a couple of years to get this sorted out for him to have everyone that they want. And with Harbaugh there and Greg Roman there, they're going to want to run the ball a lot. This is exactly the type of person that they're going to need in order to be able to do it.
Yeah, they've got rid of all their wide receivers and they brought in, well, they got rid of Eckler as well, and they brought in Gus Edwards. I think that really shows you what they want to do with the ball now.
Exactly.
Really stamps the authority. And I think we give tackles such a high value because of their importance of protecting a quarterback. But I don't think guards get enough credit for what they do for the run game. So if you're going to be a run-heavy team, which we know he is, it's perfect.
Yep.
Pick number 11 is the Arizona Cardinals, who have moved down the draft with their trade. The Cardinals trade back and still get an elite edge rusher in Jared Verse. So they're taking Jared Verse, the guy that I think was my number 1 edge for the year, true edge rusher, and an area that we know they definitely need. It's what we've had them picking with their 2nd pick in the draft. So to go and get what I would say, and he would say, an elite edge rusher, perfect for them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great pick for them. This is before we came on, it was a little bit like, oh, why would they want to trade down? They're going to miss out on Marvin Harrison. But then this is what you get. You see, you get this. You get the other 1st round pick as well in order to be able to do it. So all of a sudden you've got a team that have got loads and loads of holes, but they've got 3 first-round picks now. And as you say, Jared Verse, an elite edge rusher coming out of college, shown that how good he can be during his time at Florida State. So it just goes to show that it makes sense by doing something like this. And they're going to be, they're a funny team because obviously they've got the quarterback already, and that's what makes them a bit of a strange team and all of that. But yeah, if you start bringing on these type of pieces onto your defense, you're going to suddenly become a team that maybe doesn't need to score a ton of points every game in order to win a game. And this is a great first piece to bring in.
Yeah, they brought in Jonah Williams at left tackle as well, which I think really helped them. And we've been saying all through this draft process that we've had the Chiefs taking a wide receiver with the last pick in the draft, and we've all been saying, how do they manage to keep getting these steals at the last pick? So there's going to be wide receivers still available further down this, which we've said they've got more picks to come, so they can still address good wide receivers later on in this first round. The Denver Broncos, a bit of an odd one. Didn't see this coming. I haven't got down this far. The Denver Broncos at 12 take in Brock Bowers. I know tight end is not a pressing need for the Broncos, but this is the best player available situation. They can deploy Bowers in the slot, similarly to the way that Sean Payton utilized Michael Thomas in New Orleans. This one was a shock for me, Adam. Do you think this is where they need to go, or do you think they should be addressing quarterback here?
Yeah, I mean, they do need a quarterback, don't they? I'm not quite sure what their draft capital is for the whole of the draft. I don't know do they have a second round pick or not? I mean, maybe the logic behind this is that they can pick up someone like Bo Nix, or they can pick up Michael Penix in the second round. I'll just have a look. And they don't have one, so no.
The next pick is round 3, pick 76.
Yeah, so it kind of feels like a bit of a strange one, because you're not going to get a quarterback that you need at that point, and they need a quarterback unless they're going to go. Who have they got? Is it Jarrett Stidham?
Jarrett Stidham, yeah, Ben DiNucci.
Yeah, well. I mean, you can't start the season with Jarrett Stidham.
Well, I think they are going to start the season with Jarrett. Even if they drafted them, I think they'd start.
Well, with yeah, Stidham. But I mean, okay, you can't start the season just with Jarrett.
Yeah, you can't go through the year with him being your starter. And expect to get anything out of the year, which would be a shock for them not to take, especially with Nix and Penix still on the board. It's not as if they've gone and they're going, oh well, he's gone, so we'll go Brock Bowers.
And you've been saying, haven't you, about Greg Dulcich as well, and how we know that he hasn't been amazing. Obviously, he's had a few injuries and stuff like that, certainly in the last season. But it's like it's not. Like as Daniel Jeremiah says, it's not a pressing need. He probably is the best offensive weapon left. I will give him that. But it does feel like a bit of an odd one. I feel like you need to trade up for a quarterback, or just go for a quarterback in this position. And there's 2 guys that are available. I mean, you might even be able to move back and still take one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that haven't got Penix going in the first round. So
yeah,
if you could get to the top end of the second round, you could probably still snatch him. Pick number 13. Oh, hello. Is the Las Vegas Raiders taking Michael Penix. The Raiders signed Gardner Minshew to compete against Aiden O'Connell. However, I don't think those 2 quarterbacks have the ceiling that Penix does in the NFL. There's an assumption that Penix is more of a second rounder, but I believe his skill set is a unique fit for the Raiders' style of play. I'm really happy to see him coming off the board in the first round and in the top 20, because I think he's an exceptional talent. I've not seen someone throw the ball the way that he does coming out of college, and I just think people are going, oh, he's just a pocket passer. But I've seen a lot of him this year, and I've seen his pocket mobility. People are like, oh no, mobility. He's quick in the pocket. He can move out the way of the edge rushers, which is what you need. So I'm really happy to see him there. I'm not sure whether I'm happy to see him go to the Raiders though.
Yeah, I mean, I think when they talk about the mobility, is that he's got no legs to rush, isn't it? That's what it really is. Yeah, it does feel like an odd pick to me. The Gardner Minshew contract was very much a contract for a starter. It didn't feel like it was a contract for a backup, and so because of that, it does feel a little bit of a strange thing to now go and get yourself a quarterback in the draft as well. I I like Penix. I think he's got a great arm and looks like he's more than capable. He just obviously comes with a few issues. That's all it is, that some NFL teams won't like. But I still think that he's got himself a potential NFL career in him. He's certainly more than capable of that. Like you say, the Raiders doesn't feel like the obvious choice. They're not the like I say with the Minshew contract. It just feels a bit odd that you would do that, and you would have this, and you would have Aiden O'Connell as well still on the team. It just feels slightly strange, but maybe there's a logic of starting Minshew first and then just giving Penix time. But I mean, of all the quarterbacks, I don't know if Penix needs time, to be honest. It's like any more time, he'll just keep getting older, so he's not going to play much. So it's a bit of a weird one, a little bit out there. I feel like you could have gone wide receiver. I feel like you could have gone. They need obviously not running back in this, but they need to get a running back at some stage. I feel like you could anywhere on the defense would have helped. So it does feel a bit odd.
Yeah, I've just looked at their roster. Just have a quick look. I agree with you. I think they'll start Minshew. They'll ride the season out with it. I don't think anybody's expecting the Raiders to light the world up this year. So if Minshew just has a nice year and they look like the Raiders that did at the back end of the year, then people will be happy with the season, I think. Wide receiver, Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker. I don't think it's a pressing need for them. Michael Mayer, I think he will produce a bit more. So I may be looking at cornerback for them now they've addressed sort of Christian Wilkins. So maybe looking at that. I don't know, maybe they could probably trade out if they want to get some more capital, get some more players. But O-line, I know they've got a left tackle, but you can never have too many on the O-line, can you?
Maybe to a certain extent, they think they're a reasonably all-round team, and so they think we can bring in another quarterback and just sort of be like, let's see how you go. Maybe that's their theory.
Pick number 14 is the New Orleans Saints, taking Olu Fashanu. 2022 first rounder Trayvon Penning hasn't worked out for the Saints. Fashanu is the new solution at left tackle. They do need to address the O-line. I think we addressed earlier in this draft process that they've had quite a few guys leave on free agency. I didn't think Trevor Penning was a bust. Obviously, a lot of other people did. I just think he needs another year. But again, it's an area that they need. Definitely on the O-line but they do need to strengthen on that defense as well, don't they? They're getting a bit old in some positions, so they could have had their first pick of some of the really talented interior defensive linemen. Yeah,
the Saints have kind of got themselves in a bit of a situation because of the cap space as well, that they don't have loads of money. I think they probably do just need to keep going O-line, D-line, and just keep on refreshing that and getting younger as much as they possibly can. And so that for that reason, I think Fashanu is a good idea. Whether Penning's a bust or not, I think Fashanu is a good idea, just because they need to keep doing that with the O-line, D-line. Like you say, D-line, someone like Byron Murphy wouldn't be the worst idea in the world, I think, in this position. But I think it's really just dependent on which side you want to go for in this particular year. And so I think because of that, Fashanu's a good choice. So it makes sense.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to be stuck with Derek Carr for a little bit. So they may as well try and get the best out of him and protect him. So yeah, Fashanu for me. The Indianapolis Colts going cornerback. Nice to see them going cornerback. Taking Quinyon Mitchell, someone that is flying up boards. And this would be the first cornerback off the board, wouldn't it? He's the first corner. I always look to connect the Colts to toolsy prospects. Mitchell ran a 4.33 in the 40-yard dash at the combine, and he was phenomenal at the Senior Bowl. Two things that we reported on. So, yeah, don't mind this pick. Again, for me, it was going to be Byron Murphy or best cornerback that was left. So, happy with this one.
Yeah, I agree with this one. Corner makes sense. We've been saying all the way, like you say, through this draft process, that the big issue that the Colts had last year was that they just kept on giving up too many points. You could score over the top on them relatively easily. So you need some decent corners in order to be able to stop that. Quinion Mitchell's got the speed as well to really make a difference for them. And so because of that, it just kind of feels like a no-brainer to go and get yourself the number one corner of the class. There's quite a lot of decent corners out there in this year. It's just that you've put yourself in a position. And also, I think that there does seem to be a lot of talk about the Colts and Brock Bowers in this particular one. Obviously, Bowers has already gone, so it makes sense that Mitchell is kind of the sort of logical choice to go for because of that.
Yeah, everyone you speak to has a different cornerback one on their board. I think Mitchell is at the top of most people's, but most people have got Arnold, Mitchell. I had Kool-Aid McKinstry up there at one point. You've got Cooper DeJean that you really like, so there's plenty in this. Pick 16, the Seattle Seahawks is Troy Fontenot. Fontenot reunites with Seahawks offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb, who was the OC at the University of Washington. Fontenot can play tackle, but he would slide in at guard as a rookie with the Hawks. If they're going to play him at guard, then fair enough, because I think they've got two really good tackles. Shoring up the O-line is, as we've said all the way through today as well, is never a bad thing. Do you think this is the pressing need for them?
They're kind of, again, I think they're another team where they've got a lot of weapons, haven't they? They've their wide receivers are sorted, their running backs are sorted. They've gone with Geno again. It feels like the offense, as in weapons, is in a good place. I think defensively they're not bad, so they're not amazing, but they're not bad. So it kind of feels a bit like an O-line, D-line kind of situation again, and just keep going dependent on where you want to go. Fontenot is one of the top four, isn't he, of the O-line that we've been saying for a lot of this time now. And I just kind of feel like because of that, it sort of makes sense. Again, I think it's one you could put Byron Murphy on again if you really wanted to. But it's, I think, although the O-line class seems very strong, once you get past these first four, it does drop off a bit. And so I think because of that, it feels like it's the right move. And also it kind of felt like protecting Geno was something that they did struggle with a little bit last year. So I think because of that, it makes sense as well.
Yeah, when you've got an older veteran quarterback, shoring up the O-line is always a need. They can't get out of trouble with their legs like the younger ones. Pick 17, the Jacksonville Jaguars taking Terrion Arnold. The cornerback.
What? The Jags are taking a corner. Shocker.
Yeah. Well, see if they can get it right this time, because I think they picked two cornerbacks that over the last sort of 5 years, they aren't even on their team anymore. Arnold plays much faster than he timed at the NFL Combine. 40-yard dash. He can line up inside and outside of Jacksonville. Yeah, I think it's very interesting to point out, obviously, he played in the shadow of Kool-Aid McKinstry for quite a while. I think he actually played at safety for quite a long time until he decided, hang on, let's play him at corner. And we had absolute stormer last year, outperformed Kool-Aid. So I've got no issue with this again.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we have been saying for ages. They're constantly mocked to take a corner. Quinion Mitchell's gone. Terrion Arnold, again, there's so many of them that we've said that are capable of being classed as the number one corner. So he's done well. He's shown well. He tested pretty decently. Why wouldn't you want to go for someone like that who's had a great college career at Alabama? So it feels like a an obvious issue that needs sorting out in Jacksonville.
Pick number 18 is the Cincinnati Bengals, taking J.C. Latham. Addressing the offensive tackle is a must for the Bengals. Even with Trent Brown signing a one-year deal with the team in a draft that is stacked at the position, they should be able to stay patient and have a talented player fall to them. We've said this again, haven't we? Go hard on O-line, protect Joe Burrow, because once he's out, if he's injured, they've got no chance. So happy with this, but if they are losing Boyd and Higgins, could you hear them all whispering, the LSU connections? Do you want to bring Brian Thomas over? He would be a great replacement for Higgins if he's out.
Yeah, so that's the issue, isn't it? It kind of, this feels very similar to what it's been for the last few years with the Bengals. It doesn't really feel like anything's changed much here. It's very much, do you go for the O-line to protect Burrow? Do you go for the weapon in order to help him? So it really is about which way they go. They obviously, when they brought Chase in, they went for the weapon. As you say, when the LSU guys come up, they do tend to go for them. So it does feel like because of that, Brian Thomas would kind of make sense in that respect. But I think that this makes a lot of sense. You've got to protect him. So I completely understand why Jeremiah's put it.
I've just looked at their O-line. Although it's got some aging players on it, it is a decent O-line.
It's decent, but it still doesn't do the job, does it?
Alex
That's the
Kappa,
problem.
Trent Brown. It looks good, but yeah, it's aging. It needs help. If they're going to make a play and they want to be Super Bowl contenders, fair well when you're getting down to week 16, 17, 18, first week of the playoffs, that's when you start losing some of the guys on the O-line. And if you've got the depth there, then you're going to have a chance at going all the way.
And this is kind of my point with the Jets and the whole moving up for Marvin Harrison when you need an O-line guy. It's like that. I know they've brought a couple in, but I just don't feel like it's enough throughout the whole season.
LA Rams at 19, taking Loatu Latu, the edge from UCLA. Yeah, this makes sense as well. I'm thinking of adding a complimentary edge rusher to make a lot of sense with the 2023 rookie sensation Kobe Turner, the main man in the middle following Aaron Donald's retirement. Latu is the most natural pass rusher in the class. Yeah, we've had edge there all year. I think Kobe Turner and they had, was it Byron Young as well, both played really, really well for them. So bringing in another guy in there in that area is only going to help them. I think this is right, and the right player as well.
Yeah, this upsets me deeply. It really does. I like Latu. I think he's going to be very, very good. And the idea of him going over to the Rams is not what we want to see. If he could drop to 25, that would be lovely. I think that Latu is going to be a great edge rusher. He's got the brains to be a real top quality guy, and also the athleticism he showed at the combine. He's capable, and he's got the athleticism, which is what the criticism always was. Yes, they need an edge rusher, so of course it makes sense, but it's just depressing for the rest of the NFC teams to see this happen.
Yeah, more stars on that. All the quarterbacks go, phew, finally, Aaron Donald's gone. We're all right. And then they're bringing Latu. Pick number 20 is the Pittsburgh Steelers, taking Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma, the tackle. The Steelers have undergone a complete makeover at quarterback, but they still need to upgrade at the tackle position opposite last year's first round, Broderick Jones. Yeah, I think they could go two areas as well. Obviously, we just mentioned that Brian Thomas is still on the board. They are another team that they're going to be very young at wide receiver now. We've had O-line locked in there, and we thought maybe corner, but they've addressed that in the trade. So that leaves it to O-line. But Adam, can you see them taking a wide receiver at this point or do you think that they have to address protecting the quarterback?
So I think they need to do both, to be honest. They really do. And this is something that isn't isn't new. I mean, it's like it feels, again, even though we will always said it was O-line corner, but they always used to throw a wide receiver in every now and then as well. And it feels like this is what's happened. It's just this year, instead of it being corner, it's going to be wide receiver. So I think that they do desperately need to do both of them things. I don't think that wide receiver is what they're going to go for in the first round. And, Tomlin and the Steelers have got a great history, haven't they, of drafting wide receivers and doing really well with it. So it kind of feels like they're going to be able to go and get their guy sort of in the second or third round. They've got the picks to do it, so they can do that. I think O-line is probably where they're going to think that's the most important thing to do. Guyton is a really explosive O-line guy. I think he'll do really well. So, yeah, I think it makes sense to go for this one.
Yeah, I can see them being the team that comes out with Brendan Rice later on in the draft, and then him being a star and everyone going,
absolutely. Yeah.
Despite the fact he's a very, very good talent. So good pick for them. They do need to protect their quarterbacks, whichever one plays. The Miami Dolphins at pick 21, taking Graham Barton. The Dolphins have endured a lot of losses in free agency, including on the interior of their offensive line. Barton has legitimate 5-position flexibility. Yeah, something we said about him on our draft prospect show. He can play anywhere on the line. He is a center, but he can move around. No, not a center. He's a guard / tackle, isn't he? But you're a big fan of this guy, so it's definitely, again, they've got to protect Tua, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. It does make sense in that respect, though. The one thing I would say is they lost a lot of defensive players in free agency. Yeah, pretty much across the whole board. And so you sort of think to yourself, it would probably make more sense to go down the sort of defensive route. And I know that the top 3 edge rushers have gone now, so you're probably not going to go there, but there's still a lot of corners available. There's some D linemen that are available that are very, very good. So it kind of feels like that's more where you want to go, because we do know that O-line is quite strong, although a lot of O-line guys have gone in this mock draft already. So I think maybe because of that, that's why they're looking at Barton here. But a little bit surprising that they haven't gone for a defensive guy.
Yeah, especially when the defense was there, what let them down last year,
wasn't it? Yeah.
And then at the back end of the year, they lost Chubb and Phillips, which I'm not necessarily going to happen again, is it? But with the level of talent that's still left on the board, you got to be thinking defense has got to be an area. I know they've addressed the secondary with Kendall Fuller and Jordan Poyer, but I think they could address that defensive line a bit more, which let them down at the back end of last year. Philadelphia Eagles taking Nate Wiggins, the cornerback from Clemson. The Eagles' pass defense was atrocious last year. Wiggins is the most natural cover man in this year's draft. Again, someone that some people have got him as cornerback 1 on their boards. Good talent, played consistent at Clemson. We've said that they need to address cornerback so many times, and it's never been addressed in the mocks. So you think Jeremiah's got it right here?
Yeah, I think, well, the position's certainly right. I mean, like, as we've said, it really depends who you like the most when it comes to corners. But yeah, Wiggins has looked good. He tested well at the combine. He had a really good season at Clemson. So it makes sense in that respect that you would go for him. I think corner's the obvious choice for them as well. Bradbury's getting older. They didn't perform particularly great last year. So I think when you take all that into account, corner makes sense. However, I would be shocked if Howie doesn't make some form of trade as he normally does. So yeah, I would expect some sort of move from the Eagles, but I think whether they move up for a corner they really like or move back because they know the corner they really like's not going to go yet or what, I don't know. But the positional side of it and the player makes sense.
Pick number 23, the Arizona Cardinals. Finally, Brian Thomas has gone off the board. Where has he gone? He's vanished. There you go. With the trade with the Minnesota Vikings, they missed out on Marvin Harrison, but then when it got Brian Thomas Jr., the Cardinals passed on the chance to pick at wide receiver 4 in this scenario, but they still land premium pass catcher after trading down. We said this, if you trade down, there's still talent around that 23 mark. And he is a great talent. So this is working out for them so far.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, it's the right move. They've got their edge rusher now. They've got a top quality wide receiver as well in Brian Thomas. So although you've missed out on Marvin Harrison, you've still got yourself a great wide receiver. And that, it's all, like you say, it's all working out so far. It's something they need. They've hardly got any offensive weapons at all, apart from Trey McBride and James Conner. So they need wide receivers.
I'd be shocked if he's still there at 23, but if he is, fantastic for them. Pick number 24, the Dallas Cowboys, taking Jackson Power Johnson, the center from Oregon. 11 years ago, the Cowboys took center Travis Fredericks near the bottom of the first round, and that worked out well. They go back to the same formula. 11 years ago. So 11 years ago, they took a center and it worked out. So, let's do it again.
Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it?
Logic's not quite there with that one, Daniel. But we've said he's the best at his position, and Cowboys need help on the O-line. So
yeah, like you say, it makes sense. Obviously, Smith went, didn't he? So he's gone now to the Jets, and they need help on the O-line. They need to keep Dak upright. So this guy is the number one when it comes to being, center. So it's who you want if you want to cover that position. And I mean, it doesn't feel very Cowboy like. That's the only thing, but it is what is needed.
Yeah, if you need a center, there's quite a big drop off in talent from him. Yeah. He's the clear number one at his position. I could argue that they need help at wide receiver as well. Outside of CD Lamb, they haven't got loads. They're hoping on Brandon Cooks performing, which he only did at the back end of the year. So can't see much coming from the run game this year either, unless they address that at some point.
I think it sounds very much like running back's going to be a priority when it comes to the second day for them. So yeah, I'll be surprised if they didn't.
Pick number 25 is the Green Bay Packers, taking Amarius Mims. The Packers have moved on from injury-riddled left tackle David Bakhtiari. I could still see Green Bay going in several different directions with this pick, but Mims' upside would be very tempting here. He says several different directions. There's two directions, isn't there? O-line, D-line.
Yeah, so that's normally our history. We don't normally veer too far away from that, I must say. I do think it makes sense in respect to the position. I'm not 100% sold on Mims, but that's purely because we just haven't seen it. Yeah, you are. I mean, I just feel like we haven't really seen it because he hasn't been involved enough. That's the problem. He's missed so much time, and obviously that's an issue. Having said that, the Packers are always a little bit. Sometimes they can be a bit difficult to work out where they're going to go. They're going to go O-line, D-line, but it's very much about measurables and things like that with the Packers. It always has been a bit like that. Mims' size and speed would be everything they would love. So in that respect, it makes complete sense. It's just me and not seeing enough of what he's done. That's the problem. I just feel like he's not really put enough on tape to make me think, oh yeah, he's definitely going to be amazing. He's put enough on tape to make me think he could be amazing.
Yeah,
but
it's
the
gamble, isn't it? It's the gamble.
Which is why he's at this point in the first round.
If he turns out to be as good as what he could be,
he could be amazing.
He could be your left tackle. You remember, you've got such a young team as well. He could be your left tackle for the next 10 years and not have to worry about it. If he lives up to the standard, I think that's what we're looking at with this guy. If he doesn't work out, let's move him to guards if he works there. If not, it didn't work. So I think he's worth the gamble, especially for you guys. You've got a solid team. You don't necessarily, the way you performed at the back end of the year, you could beat anyone. So it's a luxury.
Not anyone, but nearly anyone.
Luxury pick for you, and taking a gamble is well worth it. Pick 26, is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking Darius Robinson. Robinson offers versatility, physically and athletic to the Bucs front. He would be great complement to one of the best sleeper picks in last year's draft, third rounder Yaya Diaby, who was fantastic last year. Won me a few bets as well with his sacks. So happy with that. I'm not sold on Robinson. Not sure he's the next best one off of the board. I don't think he did great at the combine either. Bucs definitely probably need to address this area. They've got a few areas that need to address. But yeah, what do you think about this pick?
I'm surprised that this is the one that they've gone for. Like you say, not necessarily the best one next. You've got the likes of Chop Robinson available to you. Chris Braswell's available to you. You know, there's some other guys that are around there. So a little bit surprising with this one. Kind of felt like you say, he didn't really test amazingly well. Edge rusher, though, I can see why they would want to go edge rusher. I don't think the position is wrong. I'm just not 100% sure that he's the right guy. I think didn't he do pretty well at the Senior Bowl, and that's where a lot of the hype came from. I think that was where it was with him, and so it's kind of like it's gone on from that. So I think that might be why there's been a lot of chat. But I mean, did we even have him in our top 10 edge rushers? No,
he did edge and D line, so he didn't.
Oh yeah. But we had a good 6 or 7 that were edge rushers, and he wasn't in that, was he? So yeah, a little bit surprising.
Well, I think we only had 2 D line. I think we only had Robinson and Newton on there. So I think the rest were edge rushers, I think. Yeah. Do you think that well, I know what your answer is. I don't know what I'm asking. I was going to say Mike Evans is getting older. Chris Godwin struggles to stay healthy. I think Trey Palmer looks good, but do you think they could think about addressing the wide receiver at this position?
Yeah. I mean, they could. I just get the feeling that the idea is very much we're just going to stick to what we've got, and it worked okay last year, which I actually think is a potential banana skin for them. I really do, because the reason that it all worked was because they had Canales there last year. He's now gone, and that's a little bit like, is it going to translate with a new sort of guy there and OC? You just sort of feel that could be a bit of a concern for them. So, but yeah, I mean, they probably do need to look at bringing in a wide receiver. Mike Evans, I know he signed a 2-year deal, but he's not getting any younger. As you say, Godwin does struggle to stay fit at times. So it's one of them things where you do sort of think to yourself, it could, you could do with something changing. But I just think, again, you can just get it later on.
Yeah, we've still got loads left on the board, haven't we?
Yeah.
Pick 27, the Cardinals with their 3rd pick in the first round, taking Byron Murphy from Texas. The Cardinals make their last of their 3 first-round picks in this projection and get the best interior pass rusher in the draft class. So in this scenario, they wrap up round 1 with arguably the best outside and inside pass rushers available, and a receiver who offers as much upside as any pass catcher in this prospect crop. I'd be shocked if Byron Murphy's still on the board at this point, but is the 3 people he's got landing at the Cardinals are all some of the best at their position. So he's stated that as well, and it's something we agree with as well. That would definitely strengthen up their front 7, having Verse and Murphy.
Yeah, I mean, that would be huge for their defense if they could have both them players. As we said, they got loads of holes, so they do need to address, lots of positions, and Byron Murphy would be amazing for them to get. I would be shocked if he fell down this low. I saw there was someone on Twitter, I can't remember who it was, but was actually having him as an outside bet at 20-1 to be the first defensive guy off the board. I mean, this is the sort of talent that you're talking about. And so it's the idea of him falling to 27 just feels really strange and very unlikely. But there's been a lot of O-line guys so far in this draft that I've noticed, and it feels like the O-line is being prioritised over the defense in this draft quite a lot. So maybe that's how come he has fallen this far. Cardinals will be, I imagine Cardinal fans will be ecstatic if they could get them 3 players in.
I would probably guess they've got a high second round pick as well. So thinking about,
yeah, they've got pick 35.
Yeah. So the wide receivers that are going to be left on the board there as well. They could be snag another great wide receiver.
And then they've got 66 and 71 as well in the 3rd round. So they've got, if they do this trade, if it was to actually happen, you'd have 6 picks in the first 71 picks, which would be make a massive difference to that team.
Yeah, and addressing the running back position in round 3 as well, that they could come away with what we will all be saying would be one of the strongest draft picks from anyone. The pick 28, the Buffalo Bills take in John Newton, defensive tackle from Illinois. Buffalo gets some more help on the interior D-line with Newton. Florida State's Ferskis and Michigan's Jenkins could be possible here. I think Newton's better than both of them. I do like Chris Jenkins, but I think Newton is a standout talent for me. Like I said, he was probably the number 1 defensive tackle until Murphy just lit up the world. So, do you think we've been saying Bills will probably go D-line, or we did say cornerback, didn't we? Or wide receiver. So do you think they're getting value with this pick going with Newton over addressing cornerback, which there's loads left on the board, or wide receiver?
Yeah, I kind of get it. I think that the D-line is something that it just feels a little bit like, I suppose, again, it's one of these teams that are kind of in that position where they're sort of like they're in win now mode, but it feels like the window is starting to close a little bit on them a little bit now. And it just, to me, it feels like they need to make a bit more of a statement. And I think the problem is with Brian Thomas now gone, it does feel a little bit like, are you going to get that wide receiver that is going to be of a high caliber? I mean, we say that they're all very good, and they are, but there is a real top 3, and then there's Thomas by himself, and then it does drop a bit. So I do wonder if that is what would put them off from taking a wide receiver here. Corner, like you say, there's plenty of corners still available that would be good for them. D-line, I mean, I always say you can never have enough D-line and O-line. It's that same thing. So you've got yourself a really, really good player from Illinois who did really well in college. I get it. I just think that I feel like they need to make a statement on the offense a little bit. But I having said that, when I think about it, and you think of, their new OC, it was very much run the ball a lot more, wasn't it? So maybe that's the angle they're going to go down now.
Yeah, quite possibly. And maybe, Curtis Samuel was enough for them to go, do you know what, we don't need a wide receiver anymore.
It's not a bad signing. I think he'd be good for them. So I think it's a good move. So yeah, maybe. And as we've said, wide receivers, there's loads of them. And the defensive line guys, there's not that many really.
And we forget they have still got Stephon Diggs. I know he didn't end the season fantastically, but he's still wide receiver 1 talent, isn't he? He's still insane.
Yeah. The overreaction. He just had a bad run, and but it did coincide with the way that they changed their game plan. And you just sort of think, well, now maybe they can have more time to get him more involved. So I don't think he's done. I just think he might be slowing down a little bit.
Pick 29 is the Detroit Lions taking Kool-Aid McKinstry from Alabama. This was a tough call for me, deciding between McKinstry and Penn State edge rusher Chop Robinson. The Lions end up going with the talented outside cornerback to pair with their former Alabama teammate, slot corner Brian Branch. You said when was this mock done? Did you say yesterday?
Tuesday,
because they've just brought in cornerback, haven't they? Yeah,
they have, but they did really struggle though. You could score over the top of them a lot, and I do think they need probably more than one corner in order to solve this issue. I think that's probably the depth area that needs help the most in that sort of secondary, and so I think because of that, it makes a lot of sense why you'd go for it.
I mean, again, we keep saying this, and I keep asking you the question, and we keep saying there's plenty of talent later on, because they've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. But outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown, they've lost Reynolds now. So I think they're like, Khalif Raymond, Jameson Williams. Hopefully, I expected more from him. But yeah, I think they do need to address wide receiver at some point, don't they? But a cornerback is somewhere where we've had locked in forever. I think if they hadn't bought Carlton Davis in, I wouldn't have even said anything. I would have just gone, yes, correct, move on. Pick 30 is the Baltimore Ravens, taking your boy Cooper DeJean from Iowa, the cornerback. Baltimore have a knack for watching tough, smart, and versatile players fall into their lap. We see it happen once again with DeJean, who comes from noted Ravens factory at the University of Iowa, the alma mater of the. Am I saying this right? Current Ravens, Tyler Linderbaum, former Ravens, Geno Stone at Marshall Yonder. They lost the safety, didn't they? In Geno Stone. But do you think they need cornerback? Is cornerback where you'd have them pegged to be picking?
See, I think again they're one of these teams where it's like you could argue that just anywhere on that defense would help. They always want to have the defense stronger, don't they? That's how they play, and it's like that's the most important thing to them. When you sort of think of the offense, you sort of think wide receiver is another one that would kind for this team makes a lot more sense. It looks like OBJ is going off to Miami, is what it sounds like. Bateman hasn't really done it. But all of these teams are passing on these wide receivers, and I can only assume that the logic behind this is that they're all going to be there in the next round is kind of the theory behind it. So in the second round, the third round, you're going to get a lot of these wide receivers because we've only had 4 go off the board. So it does feel like they are almost coming out going, actually what we're going to do is we're going to take these other positions which we deem not necessarily more valuable, but kind of like for this draft feels a little bit more valuable. And so I think that's probably why they've gone for it. You could argue they need something to replace Patrick Queen. That's something that they could do with doing, but it's not really something you do in the first round. I think because of that, it kind of makes sense that they're going there.
If everybody decides that, we'll just get a wide receiver in the second round. I think when you pick 62 in the second round,
there's not going to be many left.
Yeah. I think all of those guys are then gone. So I think they're at prime position, especially they don't desperately need a cornerback. It would definitely help them. So I think them taking their best option at wide receiver, I think would be sensible here, because
it does feel like maybe a speedster like a Xavier Worthy would make a lot of sense here for them. They could go big bodied guy like Keon Coleman at the back of the first. They could go for someone like that, but it does feel like a Xavier Worthy, maybe an Adonai Mitchell would be the way forward for him here. So you want to get in before, don't you? Before the run. That's what you want to do.
I think I'd like having the option of the next of the crop, because you're not you're not getting the next of the options at 62. You get whoever's left there, if it's Roman Wilson or Ladd McConkey, which I'll be surprised if we're at 62. So I think you're right. If there's that group of next lot, I'd want first pick of them if I was the Ravens. Pick 31 is the San Francisco 49ers taking Chop Robinson. The 49ers signed Leonard Floyd and Yetur Gross-Matos to join Nick Bosa. But they love having deep rotation at pass rush, and they keep the players fresh. Robinson has the best get off in the class, and that's the hallmark of their D line. Chop Robinson at 31. Didn't see that happening. Again, San Francisco 49ers just taking fantastic players at the back end of the draft. Thank you very much, I'm sure they're saying.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it feels like this is where it feels like they've got Chop Robinson and Darius Robinson round the wrong way here a little bit. But that's yeah, so this makes a lot of sense for the 49ers. As he said, they do like to rotate their pass rushers a lot. Chop Robinson tested amazingly. He's incredibly athletic edge rusher, really good at going round the outside and getting to the quarterback. So, I mean, I think he'd be ideal. And, you know, as you said, they're in a position where they've got this great team, and really it's just about trying to keep getting younger all the time if they can. That's what they need to do. And so I think Robinson maybe is a bit of a he's still a bit inexperienced compared to some of the other edge rushers that are in this class, but I think that there is some serious potential upside to him, that if you can get him in and coach him, he could be very, very good for many years to come.
Yeah, I think I heard at the back end of the year, their downfall was when they went Bosa, Chase Young, was they're both go and get the quarterback edge rushers.
Yeah.
And they said that doesn't really work when everybody's trying to sack the quarterback and you're leaving it up the middle a little bit sort of open for them to just then run the ball, and you haven't got that run blocking edge type style player. So is Robinson the right fit? We talked about fit earlier in the draft. Maybe not, because again, he's another go and get the quarterback player, which Nick Bosa is. But equally phenomenal talent. You can rotate him with Leonard Floyd, so not a problem.
Yeah.
And the Kansas City Chiefs with the last pick in the draft, taking Eli Mitchell from Texas. A lot of people might expect to see Mitchell's teammate Xavier Worthy go here, but I feel like the Chiefs got their version of Worthy by signing Hollywood Brown. Mitchell gives Kansas City more size and physicality without sacrificing speed element. I think now they've got Rice and Hollywood Brown, they could probably go cornerback here and replace Snead, wouldn't you thought?
So, yeah, I mean, that kind of does make a lot of sense that you go down that route, but they've just done the one thing that you said you should do if you're at the back of the first in order to get ahead of any of the other wide receivers. So
I'm quite happy with their core. If they've got Rashee, Brown, Watson, Moore, Tony.
I just think that what's happened with a lot of their receivers is that it feels like it hasn't really worked with the majority of them. Obviously MVS has gone now because he went in free agency, but it feels like Tony, it hasn't really worked. It feels like Sky Moore hasn't really worked. So it is kind of like, you know, you've got Kelsey, who's, to be brutally honest, is not going to be around much longer, is he? So it's like you've got him, and then you've got Rashee Rice, and now you've got Hollywood Brown. I kind of feel like they would want another one, because I do feel like them. I mean, Sky Moore obviously will hang around because he's on his rookie contract still. I don't know how much longer Tony's going to be around for, to be honest. So it does kind of feel like another wide receiver does make a lot of sense for them. Yes, they do need to address corner. You are right. Obviously, Snead being traded away is a problem. So it is something they need to do. But a lot of the corners have gone now in this draft. So it does kind of feel like, where do you go with it? And maybe their logic is, let's get the next best wide receiver, like you said, before everyone else, and take the top. So you've got the higher class kind of guy, and then you can go and pick a corner in the next round. And okay, he's not going to be the best, but at the same time, you've still got a very, very strong defense.
Yeah, I mean, just like we were saying with the Ravens, it's a luxury pick of whatever you want, really, because your team's stacked. Both of them have got very similar teams to what they had last year. Not a lot has changed, so it is a luxury pick. Adam, I thought there was going to be a bit more bit more wild trades in there. I thought
Yeah, I was surprised. I was expecting a lot more. The way that it was sort of portrayed and the way that it was worded at the front, it kind of felt like there was a lot more. I had already seen the first 10 picks, obviously, and that was where all the trades were. So I was a bit surprised there wasn't much more. I think there will be quite a lot of trading on the first night, and I think there'll be a lot of trading on day 2 as well. I know you always see it a little bit, but I do feel like it's starting to become more and more that you're getting more and more happen. People are more willing to gamble a little bit more. So yeah, I was a little surprised that it kind of, once we got past pick 10, it kind of died a bit.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of people saying that because the head coaches now are so much younger, they're willing to make more of these gambles and be hard, and this is why we've seen free agency light up day one, because these young GMs are just like, that's the way we do it now. They don't loyalty, stick around, see how it plays out. So you're right, I think there'll be a lot more drama to come on actual draft night as well. And Daniel Jeremiah, like he said, he'll put another one out the day before the draft. Might be a bit late for us to review, but definitely worth keeping your eye out if you are if you've watched this and you really like what he was saying. So yeah, we'll put another vote out, won't we, for what people want us to do upcoming. Until then, tune into the Tuesday show. Lots of stuff going on then. Have a look at our draft prospects if you are unsure of some of the names we've mentioned today, and see where we've got them. Till then, keep it with the franchise tag, and see you again very soon.